they got to where they quit asking my opinion because it was like, you're asking me a question. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, I had no issues telling them like their ideas were stupid. I know I've heard you talk about it too on other episodes about how, you have those solid leaders they never promote because they don't kiss the ass.
Society wants us to take bad guys to jail. They want us to go out there and find bad guys. They just don't want us, they want us to put in a good day's work. They don't want us just to sit here and answer calls for service.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country.
Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
In this podcast, I had the opportunity to speak with the owner and founder of Mike Loop, Nick. You get to see Nick as an actual person and not just a cop. You get to see the trials and tribulations he went through as a husband, as a father, also as a law enforcement officer that is also an entrepreneur. He has since left law enforcement, but his business keeps him connected to law enforcement. I think it's a great podcast that you get to see Nick on a personal level, and he goes through and talks about trials and tribulations that anyone in society goes through. Once you take off that badge and uniform, cops are nothing more than your everyday citizen. So let me know what you think.
A little intimidating. Open it up and it says recording in progress.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
pretty genuine, and I'll cut any of the bullshit out that we don't want to.
like I'm about to catch you talking right now. I'm gonna catch somebody farting when they get on the camera.
Yeah, I'm always when I jump on podcasts, I'm always worried about that same thing. I'm like, man, I have to make sure like nothing's around, like everything's good. Like,
Yeah, for true. Yeah. So, but I'm actually currently not at home. I've been away from home for a year taking care of my kid. I don't know if you followed any of that or not with our stuff.
Yeah, and then you filled me in a little bit more a couple months ago when I reached out about.
That's right.
Yep,
that's right.
And then I guess I didn't realize at the time, and then I went back and started looking at some stuff, and I didn't. That's me being, I guess, just a jerk in general. So I apologize for that.
Don't worry about it, dude.
How is everything going with your son?
It's going okay. So I mean, he medically he's totally good. There's no necessary medical interventions or anything like that have to take place. He's still dealing with the after effects from his TBI. So, working through that and doing therapies and stuff like that. The only thing that's really keeping us away from home is the Navy. We're trying to work through the retirement process. So we can go home and he's going to come live with us and that'll be it.
How many years how long into his service did this happen?
So this is his 7th year, and he got injured April of 24. So this will be his 8th year.
Wow.
Yeah. So he had just got stationed at Pearl Harbor, and he just had a car crash. He had been in Hawaii for 4 months, and had a car crash and a rollover and scrambled his eggs. Man, he got a pretty severe brain injuries and a coma for about 24 days, and came out of it. And it's just been the road to recovery, man. It's been a definite journey for sure.
Yeah, that's rough.
But we're dealing with it. We're just working with it as best as we can, and I listened to a few of yours to kind of get an idea, and it's a good podcast, dude. I mean, you've definitely got like the vibe going, like with the whole bar and stuff. What I'm imagining is like this is what's on the camera, and the rest of the room is just like boring.
It's actually in my garage, so like We do have a beer cooler here. I have some like sports memorabilia. I have a TV above me. So I mean, I literally transformed my entire garage into like a man cave. And then
Oh, that's
I had no intention of doing a podcast, and we are thrilled to announce that we have expanded our partnership with HPTRT. Now, if you use the code RED, you will get 50% off all of your purchases. HPTRT are the best in the game. They're founded by first responders, and they are targeting first responders, knowing that first responders need the most help. So if you need anything from peptides to hormones, TRT, even general health, they'll hook you up. I know most men my age are on some type of peptides or testosterone replacement therapy. I mean, no one ever wants to end up getting their ass kicked by Nolan Ryan, especially when Nolan Ryan was double Robin Ventura's age. So check out HPTRT. Use the code RED to get 50% off. And I'm more like quiet and reserved. I'm like, I think more people would want to hear my guests, not me. Because like, if they want to hear me, they could just log into my Instagram and see me the whole time, or come to my class or whatever. You know, like I feel like they want to hear more of the guest stories. So I try to just sit back and let everyone else tell their story.
I was actually before we hopped on, I was kind of cleaning up after I ate some dinner real fast. And I was like, man, Kenny is like the chill dude, like just talking, like listen to your podcast. I'm like, you're always like, you got the same tone. You're just like totally calm. It feels like, you're not just gonna piss you off. But I'm like, I know who he is. He's like that chill guy meme, like the dog.
That's funny because someone from New Jersey made a meme with that dog for me, and he sent it to me. He's like, "Dude, you got to use this meme." And I was like, "All right, fair enough, I'll use it." And so you're now the second person that has told me that. But I mean, this is my personality. I don't have like these highs or lows. I'm just kind of like here. Like, there's not a lot that you can get a rise out of me.
I mean, that that is like an enviable trait because I had a guy that had worked on my troop that was not as like he was goofy, he was young, but he wasn't as just even tone as you are. But whenever shit happened, like you couldn't rattle him. And I was always like let's kick some ass, whatever. Like I would always be like ready to get after it. And he was always just like, hey man, you need to calm down. Hey, he'd be like telling people, I'm like, give me your fucking hands and whatever. I'd be just like barking at people. And he's just like, hey man, you need to give me your hands. Show me your hands. It's just like, just total. I'm just like, after an incident, I'd be like, man, I wish I could just be like that. I wish that was my normal response. But to get that response, I had to think about it and be really intentional about don't go, full idiot on this, whatever.
I used to get like when younger me would get in pursuits. That was the only time because people could never hear me on the radio. And then when I was in pursuits, they knew that I was amped up because they could actually hear what I was saying before. Like if it was just anything else, they said I just mumbled on the radio. But when I got in pursuits, I was like normal conversation level, and they knew that I was like amped up. I was like, I didn't even realize that there was such a thing. They're like, yeah, man, like when you're talking, we can never hear you. And then all of a sudden you get in a pursuit and you're like normal, like the rest of us talking.
Yeah.
There's not like that high, like squawk and squealing like some people when they get in pursuits.
Yeah, I loved it. You always knew something was going on when their voice was like 2 octaves or 2 or 3 octaves higher. It's so dumb. Yeah, those are the good old days.
Well, enough about me, man. Yeah, I'll sit back and let you talk and tell your whole story. And I do like to hear a little bit like about you, like just your childhood growing up. If you're willing to talk about it,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Elementary to high school, and then whatever you did after to police work. And I'll let you just keep rambling and I'll take notes. And if there's something that I want to bring up, I'll hit you with it.
Don't threaten me with a good time, dude. You get me talking, I will not shut up. But yeah, man. I grew up in Arkansas. I would say a pretty normal childhood. I was one of 2 kids. I got an older brother. Mom was a nurse. Dad, he was kind of a tradesman. He did a bunch of different jobs. He did a lot of trades, and he kind of went from job to job every now and then. He not that he couldn't hold it down. He couldn't hold down a job, but he would work somewhere and he'd get fed up with it and he'd go do something else, and he'd get pissed off of it and he'd go do something else. I mean, he had no trouble finding a job because he literally was this dude that he could pretty much do any job. You know, he could do anything. So he finally drew disability when he was just like, I don't want to work anymore. So he was able to get disability and go from there. But my mom was a nurse my whole life, and uh, yeah, it's just kind of a regular childhood, dude. High school, I played football for 2 years, junior and senior year, at a 1A school, just a small school in Arkansas. Um, my senior year was the year I started because we had 24 guys on the team, so they didn't have a lot to pick from. But thankfully, I was tall and mildly strong and not very fast, so I was on the field the whole game, playing offense, defense, special teams, everything. And we just didn't have the manpower, but we had fun. I mean, our team wasn't amazing or great, but we had a lot of fun. We won some games, and man, I didn't think about law enforcement until way later in my lifetime, up into my 20s. But up until that point, um, man, I just had like the normal trials of some kid trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. After high school, I moved down to New Orleans and lived with my brother. He had moved down there, and he was getting into real estate. So I just moved down there to get out of the house, and picked up just random jobs. Man, I worked telephone collections. You want you want a job that will make you want to like start a 12 gauge. Like telephone collections is like the worst job. And man, there were people that they made plenty of money at it, making bonuses. And I'd hear these people talk to people they would call with debt and stuff like that, and just man, they just ragged them. They just told them like the biggest lies to get them to pay their money. It's just like it was horrible. So yeah, I did that for a little while. I wasn't very good at it because like I just couldn't lie to people and couldn't make up stories to get them to like convince them to believe me. I must have heard the phrase like you can't get blood from a turnip, I don't know, 100 times, because people are like, I can't pay you, whatever, hey, people owe money, whatever. But I did that for a while, and uh I met my ex-wife down there, and we got married, kind of started family in 2005. We just had our first kid together. She had a son when we got married, and we had our first child together. And Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, so that put us in a position where we needed to relocate because we didn't have, I lost my job, she lost her job, and we the only thing we could really fall back on was my family back home, back in Arkansas. Fort Smith, Arkansas is where I'm from. And um, we had a little bit of family we could rely on there. I had some connections with people that I used to work for back in high school, and just started trying to rebuild from there. But shortly before we moved, I kind of went in this phase of, I don't know, I'm just going to say a phase of like helping people. I don't know what generated it. And it's just something I started doing. And, I'll kind of dive into what I mean by like this phase of helping people. Not like charity work or anything like that, but I just drove like a beater Plymouth Neon, right? I just drove this beater car. You probably would have pulled it over if you saw it, but because I would have driven by you like like I was totally nervous. But I carried like all my tools and crap in the trunk because I didn't have storage in the apartment that I lived in or whatever, so I carried a jack and all kinds of stuff. And I would see people like stranded on the highways down there in the New Orleans area. Like I lived, it was probably about a 45-minute commute across a bridge, across a bayou, and through the city to get to where I worked. And I would see people pulled over all the time on the side of the road. And I was like, man, I got this big ass floor jack in my car. I would stop and their cars up and help them change tires. And it just kind of became a thing. I got to where I was like looking for it. You know what I mean? And I liked it. It was just the weirdest thing. I was just like, oh, I like helping people on the side of the road. And out of nowhere, this idea came in my head of like, I think I want to try to be a cop, because we want to save the world when you want to be a cop, right? If the first thing you have in your mind is I'm going to be a cop to help people. That's I think that's everybody's idea. Is whenever they get into law enforcement, is they're going to help their community, make the change, whatever, change the world. But hurricane happened, and we had to relocate, and I didn't get to apply with the agency that in the city we lived in, and that idea got put on the back burner. So I just worked, and my first job in law enforcement came from a relationship I built with a lady that used to that was at the grocery store that I was working at. She was the administrator of a juvenile facility, juvenile jail, and she was just like, "Hey, I see how you talk to people here. I think you'd fit right in. Why don't you come check it out?" So went down there and checked it out, and put an application, got hired, and that was off to the races, man. I was working at the sheriff's office, working in juvenile detention, and I kind of started pouring effort into learning about more about law enforcement. I mean, it's a crash course. I mean, you go in there and you got a uniform and a belt and a radio and you know um, but you don't know anything. They don't really put you through a ton of training. At least they didn't at my old agency for juvenile detention. I mean, it's about as entry level as you could get at
Is
that
that
point.
is that like a jail for like juveniles in?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was uh 10 to 17.
Wow.
So we had inmates from 10 years old to 17.
Crazy.
And oh yeah, I mean, I think that well at the time I know that now I think the perception has shifted because I mean the world as we I don't know how old you are. I'm 45. I just turned 45. And the world as we know it is much different now than it was, in 2007. And the juvenile facilities are definitely full of the criminals of tomorrow. I mean, it's no doubt about it. Some of the kids that we would get in there, um, they would talk to you like kids. They would, kind of relate to you as kids, and some of those kids would kind of look at some of the detention deputies as kind of like father figures in some ways. Because I mean, stereotypes are there for a reason, man. I mean, and you have a lot of fatherless kids in there, and but at the same token, while these kids will sit down and play cards with you or whatever, you know, they are in there because they committed an aggravated robbery on a lady where they beat her up and tied her up and stole all of her shit. You know what I mean? It's the same kids. And, before I left, they started getting, after I left, I should say, after I left the detention center, is when they started getting more and more kids there for murder, and whenever I became a patrolman, I started to run into a lot of the kids that I would uh, have watched over in detention, and they would see me and they would, hey, Tuttle. And anytime I'd hear my last name, I was like, you knew it. It's like, oh, they don't, that's what they know me by. I'm looking around, I'm waiting to see if I recognize them. And sure enough, I would say like 90% of the time it was somebody from the detention center. And
Did you stay with the same agency
I
from
did.
juvenile center? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. And uh, thankfully, I'd always worked to be one of those detention deputies that tried to build rapport, didn't you know, talk shit to them all the time, and just we'd go back and forth, and you made it light, because I mean, just like just like they're stuck there. I mean, I'm stuck there too for you know 4 days in a row for 12 hours. So I mean, we're essentially in there together, but we had a mutual respect for one another, and that was the thing. I would just treat them with respect, and they would listen to me. But you had other guys there that went in there barking orders and screaming at them and stuff, and just treat them like dog shit, and they had no respect for them, and they wouldn't listen to them. So I rarely had problems when I was working there. But it was a good learning experience. I mean, to learn how to talk to people, and to talk to the element that you're going to be dealing with mostly, and it was good area to cut my teeth. I'm thankful that I did that, and didn't just jump right into some patrol position, because I definitely would not have been prepared for it at that time of my life.
I think
But
that working in a jail or juvenile center has got to be like one of the most commendable things. You're locked up for the same amount of time that they are every single day. Or yeah, I mean, when you're working. So for me, that's always I always look at it. It's like it's something that's super commendable. Because I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I had the patience to stay in there for 8 or 12 hours a day.
yeah, man, I would. So I would. The juvenile detention center and the adult detention center were just across the Sally Port from each other. So you would see the municipalities and state police and whatever bringing people in, and man, you see some of the stuff that those adult detention deputies have to put up with, and it's just like, damn, they always got shit on too by some of the cops back in the day, that they would uh, just kind of dog them or whatever, because they weren't out there, you know, on the beat, working patrol, whatever. They're just jailers, and it's like, man, those guys, you deal with those people for 30 minutes while you're arresting them, searching their car, dealing with a report, taking information, whatever, and like you put the cuffs on them and you're done. They have to live with them and feed them and deal with them, you know, 24 hours a day until their sentence is up or they're relocated somewhere else. So yeah, I have nothing but respect for detention deputies, because I've seen firsthand having to deal with it, on the juvenile side, and then on the adult side, I mean, when I say it's 100 times worse, it's 100 times worse. There's no doubt about it. And whenever I got out on patrol, and I would, if I would hear another deputy dogging somebody from the jail, I would correct them real fast. Like, you don't want to do their job, bro. You know,
I would want part of it. No, I mean, more power to him, but I don't. Like a special person, and I don't know if I have that in me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you'll find out if you want to do it or not. You'll find out if it's real quick. And we had turnover. The jail had probably the biggest turnover of anything. So.
What
But I
did
think
you
that's
do? What did you do during that time to kind of help you stay sane? Like when you're going off duty and away from the jail.
man. Well, I had family. I had my wife and kids. So I mean, um, time off of work was just spent doing family things, and I went to the gym. I'm a gym rat, dude. I've been a gym rat my whole life, and so I would have gym time, and yeah, family. I mean, that was just it. It was just I don't want to say at that junction in my life it wasn't a switch that I turned off, because it was something that was brand new. So I mean, I was kind of interested in it. You're interested in it, and you kind of stay, I guess. I don't really quite know how to describe it, but you stay kind of, I guess, more on the pulse when you're brand new. And I wasn't like going out on my days off and like hanging out at the jail and all that kind of stuff, my days off. But time off was just spent with my kids and at home. Um, and just, I mean, just doing family stuff. We didn't really have any kind of crazy hobbies that we did. I think the only hobby that I really had was the gym and my car. I had a riced out car that I spent way too much money on. So that was probably the other hobby that I had.
Is that like a Honda Civic or something like that?
It was a baseline Mitsubishi Lancer.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was
Yeah,
fast. It was fast for what it was because I poured too much money into it. But yeah, it was fun. It was a
Did
fun
you grow,
thing.
did you grow up in rural Arkansas?
Yeah, kind of. I guess you could call it rural. We're so the city that is home now is basically like where I grew up, essentially. It's the second largest municipality in Arkansas, and where I went to school was a small town just south of there. So, um, and my address was a rural route. So yeah, I mean it was definitely rural, but it wasn't. It didn't feel so like backwoods country. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I had to go down a dirt road or anything in my house. And
Right.
funny enough, I mean, um, the county that I ended up working for was the county that I grew up in. So um, it's funny when you police the area that you grew up in, you end up arresting a lot of the people that you know.
Yeah, for sure. I also feel like if you are good to people and you grew up in that area, you have a rapport already built and established, so people um, confide in you. I feel like
Yeah,
they have some relatability. You're not an outsider, and they might confide in you more than someone else.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Out in our area, there wasn't such a I don't want to say there wasn't such a criminal element, but it wasn't like the people that I knew and grew up with were connected or had intimate knowledge of other activity happening. So it's like, I mean, if they saw something and they knew my phone number or knew how to get a hold of me, they would contact me. But that was really kind of a rare occurrence, just because of I guess just the people that I associated with. I mean, they didn't that didn't happen very often as far as like uh, giving me inside information about anything going on or whatnot. But again, there were plenty of people who knew who I was prior to my career, and when they would see me in uniform and they hadn't seen me in years, they're just like, "Oh my goodness, look at look at you!" Kind of a response. So, but it was cool. It was cool getting to police the areas that I grew up.
How do you think playing sports related to your law enforcement?
I think I definitely attribute um, sports helped me to appreciate the value of a team, and I think that's the biggest. Well, it's probably debatable, but in my situation, I think that was the biggest benefit that I got from it was to learning to work with a team and to understand that something I heard growing up my whole life, man, because I was just like this self-absorbed little kid. The whole world doesn't revolve around me. And whenever you get into a situation where you have to rely on other people, you definitely realize that really fast. Um, but also, to persevere. We had a lot of hard fought games that we had to struggle through, whether it was in poor weather conditions or whatever, and to really kind of rally together and to push through hardships. So yeah, and to learn how to better yourself, pay attention to things. I mean, whenever you're 17 and 18 years old, you have the luxury of youth. So you don't necessarily appreciate physical fitness as much as you do when you're older, because it just kind of comes naturally with the rush of testosterone in your teenage years. But it's definitely where I learned how to work out. Uh, my junior year starting football, I had no idea how to pick up a weight. I'd never stepped foot in a weight room. And then here I was with, a bunch of meatheads in there, squatting for the first time, power cleaning for the first time. It's amazing that, I mean, nobody in there knew what we were doing. And it's amazing that I didn't end up with some massive injury. But Yeah, that's where it started. I mean, learning how to lift weights and then off season exercise and things like that. That was kind of where it started. And as a kid, you see the results of the work you put in. I mean, here you are, um, 17 years old, and now you've got muscles, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. So you stick with it, and it stuck with me. I still do it to this day. Work out every day.
Same here. How was that culture shock when you left Arkansas and moved to New Orleans in your
Oh,
20s?
dude. I mean, um, well, that's like taking me way back, having to remember those. But yeah, no, it's a total culture shock. It's a different world down there. I mean, the whole system of the way everything works is completely different. But it was cool. I did a lot of growing up down there, drank a lot of alcohol when I wasn't old enough to do it. But um, yeah, it was cool. It wasn't such a crazy, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing kind of situation, because by and large, all the stuff you hear about New Orleans, when it comes to like the parties, being the party city and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of partying and alcohol and music and stuff down there, but that's not the totality of the city right there. I mean, that's all kind of localized to like certain specific areas, and all the wild Bourbon Street stories you hear, and they're all on Bourbon Street. And once you've lived there for a while, you really don't want to go to Bourbon Street anymore. It's just trash.
Makes sense. More
You
of a
know,
touristy area, right?
it's very much a tourist area. Yeah, yeah, it's a place to go get blackout drunk and throw up on the street, because that's what the whole street smells like, is vomit. So it's what everybody's doing. But there's always something to do in New Orleans. That's one thing I'll give it, is that there's always something to do, when it doesn't matter what time of day it is. They don't shut down. So it was a good time. I lived there for 8 years, and I enjoyed it. But I mean, I wouldn't move back.
It's more of
No,
a
not.
youth thing.
What's that?
I think like bigger city stuff's more for like your college mid-20s type of era. I think any big city like that, and I think once you start to get in your later 20s or like Thursdays, early 30s, and you start to have kids and get married, you kind of move back away from cities.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got its charm, and you can be a part of that there without um craziness. But um I just think a lot of the stuff has kind of gotten out of hand, especially in the more urban areas. It's just more dangerous to live there now. I think crime is pretty high. And yeah, it's not a place that I would really want to live anymore. It's just not my vibe anymore.
Yep, I can believe that. How was Katrina?
Man, Katrina it was it wasn't scary at first. So, I'd been there for about 7, 8 years before the hurricane hit. And it's just a big ass hurricane coming. I mean, it was hurricanes are different than other storms like tornadoes. I don't know, do you get tornadoes in your area?
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah, so I mean, where I live, we're in Tornado Alley. So I mean, there's tornado sirens, and they test the tornado sirens and stuff all the time. But tornadoes are a big concern, so you pay attention to the weather systems that are coming through. But hurricanes, man, they're coming days out. 2 weeks out, the weather will be telling you, hey, this system's blowing here. And they give you like a track of what direction it's going. And the further, the closer it gets to landfall, they can dial in that track pretty much exactly where it's going to land. And so, we'd been through some tropical storms and a couple of hurricanes by this time, so it wasn't that big deal, man. It was just a storm. And of course, here I was, 20 20 something years old, and 25, and you know, you think it's not going to happen to you or whatever. I'd never evacuated for a hurricane before, but all all the weather tracks and said that this thing was like, it was just gonna like, man, just like go right up the poop chute of New Orleans, man. I mean, just right up the gut. And so we all decided to pack up the car, took a bag, a couple of days worth of clothes, headed out. We got a brand new newborn, so that aspect of things made it a little more nerve wracking, as when it's just you, or if it's just like you and your spouse or a girlfriend or whatever, it's not such a big deal. But when you got actually people you're responsible for, it adds the pressure. So that was a little scary. I think the reality of it really set in for me was so going out of the city that we lived in. We lived in a city called Kenner, Louisiana. It's just outside of the New Orleans metropolitan area. It's like right there. And when you leave Kenner, you go across the big lake, Lake Pontchartrain. You've probably heard the name Lake Pontchartrain in like Alan Jackson songs. And they have two long bridges that are going over the swamp and stuff there, right? Well, what they did is they opened up what's called contraflow, where all the bridges are going out. So there's not one coming in. So I'm driving on the inbound highway, looking at the back of all the signs. And then I'm looking across at the other bridge, and they're going that way too. And it really kind of hit me that point. It's like, oh shit, this is surreal. It very much felt like an Independence Day situation, or like an apocalyptic type situation, and I think that's when the reality hit me. It's like, oh man, this is serious, and we relocated to where did we go? I think we went up to Baton Rouge. Or no, we went up to Lafayette, Louisiana, and I think we just stayed in a hotel. But we're watching the news, right? And we're watching the hurricane come in, and you just go to bed that night, whatever, because it's about to make landfall in a few hours. It's late. And next morning we wake up, turn the TV on, and man, you just see like devastation. The first video feed that I saw was the side of a building just completely like blown off, so it gave me a sinking feeling like this is really bad. And then the more we learned about it, just the more we learned that all the damage that was done, the levees and stuff had overflown, and there's all kinds of conspiracy with all that, that from years ago. But the bottom line is all this water from the lake got pushed up into the canals, which over the storm surge just overran the canals, and a lot of areas got it worse than we did. My brother's house, he lived downtown New Orleans. His house had 7 feet of water in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their house was actually set up onto their yard, so it was probably 10 feet of water or more on their street. And where we lived, we only got about 7 inches of water in our house, but I mean, 7 inches of water enough to do plenty of damage, especially when it sits there for a day. So the hard part came from not being able to go back home. Like, you just weren't allowed to go back home, and because everybody wanted to go back and check on their stuff. So the National Guard and everybody, they got activated, and I mean, roads were just shut down. You would, if you literally tried to drive home, like, there was a blockade that would just turn you around and make you go back.
Wow.
So it wasn't until 2 weeks later that we were actually able to go back to our house and start trying to pick up the pieces and survey damage. And I mean, by that time, I mean, 2 weeks in 100-degree weather and humidity with all the water and stuff. I mean, there was just mold just rampant everywhere. So, the place we rented to live was toast, and we ended up having to find a new place to live, and we ended up staying in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We relocated from Lafayette to Baton Rouge and stayed with some family that my wife had there, my ex-wife had there. And I think we were there from, let's see, August. I think it hit August 2005, pretty sure. And we stayed there till October. So, a couple months. And then in October, we decided to head back home to Arkansas. And that was it, man. Stressful time though, for sure. Like it was a majorly stressful time. Just essentially being homeless
Yeah.
because you don't. I mean, you don't have any place to go. You're just relying on family to live with them. So
Did your
that's
brother
my.
stay down?
What's that?
Did your brother stay down there?
They did. They did. He actually, at that time, he owned. He still owns a bunch of property down there, a bunch of rental property, and he had his hands full, man. He busted his back working to get those properties back up and running and renovated, and all the rigmarole that comes with that, and like city permits and all that stuff. But he did. They worked really hard and they got all their stuff fixed back up, and um, they still own property. They moved to South Carolina though. They don't live there anymore, but they still own property down there and have to go back and forth occasionally. But they stuck it out for sure, man. They lived there a long time.
When you went into law enforcement, what was your aspiration? Like, did you have any like specialties that you were interested in, or just general, like you just wanted to get in there to help people?
I mean, so going into law enforcement and starting working at the jail, I didn't really know what there was. I just knew there were cops. That's about it. And cops help people. You know, um, I was the first person in my family to ever, to my knowledge, I'm the only person in my family to have a career in law enforcement. Growing up, my dad kind of had a bad perception of cops. He had a few run-ins with the law, you know, alcohol related stuff, but he wasn't a fan, and he would talk openly about it. So um, I kind of had a fear of cops in a way, just kind of based on what he had, the way he had talked about them. Um, but when I started working in detention, I really didn't know what there was. So I learned a lot. I would talk to all the patrolmen that would come in there, from the PD and from the sheriff's office. I would just sit down and talk to them and ask them questions. Um, but the more I learned about things, I realized that okay, I don't want to work in detention anymore. I want to get out to patrol. Um, Whenever I started doing I became a reserve deputy, so I started doing some reserve training and ride along like that with other patrolmen. And one of the guys that I would ride with, who was kind of showing me the ropes, he was on the SWAT team, and so I started gearing towards that. And so I wanted to like get on patrol, join SWAT, and just do the fun um, action stuff, man. That's kind of what it ended up uh, leaning into, is that you're gonna get out and have that, I guess, have that aspect of excitement. Excitement kind of drove me to want to explore those other things, doing the actionable things. And I think I equated in my head that those roles were the ones that made the biggest impact, because you see patrolmen out there catching bad guys, but you see SWAT out there, you know, kicking indoors, doing all those things. So I guess in my head at the time, that was where the best part to be was. I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what the word interdiction was. Whenever I became a patrolman, um, I started learning more about that. From the guy that I initially trained with. I didn't really have a formal FTO period. I guess my agency just they called it FTO, but it wasn't by any stretch part of a policy or anything. So, we'll just call that, I guess, like the field training part of my career was that time in reserve. But I learned a lot and I accomplished quite a bit during that time. And that's where I first got introduced to the idea of what interdiction actually was, because the guy that I was training with, he just wanted to find dope. That's all he wanted to do is find dope. But he was using the tools that he was given, and the best tools that he was given was stop the shitty cars and find dope.
Kind of a real stuff. I used to be told that shit drives shit. That was like
Yeah.
part of
There you
my I guess FTO process. Shit drives shit. And I was like, I guess it can relate, but I mean, like, I was like, there's got to be a bigger picture than just something so simplistic.
Well, I mean, if you don't expand your thought process to, to the bigger picture, um, that will always be rewarded, because sure enough, I mean, you know, everybody's got their car of choice, right? That one, and that for some reason now, like Altimas are the big one, like the Nissan Altimas are like the ones that everybody likes to rag on, right? But see, back in my time, it was if I see a white Pontiac Grand Prix running, dude, that thing's hitting the shoulder.
Ours, I guess like the Impalas and Monte Carlos, like that kind of era, like
There
that.
you go, yeah,
That those were always something that we would see stop more often than not.
yeah. And but I the way it shook down for me was that it's something about like the Pontiac car. I always feel like I saw the same person, same type of person driving that car. So your comment of shit drive shit is accurate, and it never failed, man. You'd find a little dime bag on somebody, or you'd find a little bit of paraphernalia, and it's like boom, like I knew it. So that idea kind of gets reinforced with what you find, and you're just like, cool, I'm good with finding these little things, and you get kind of trapped in your box where you don't see the other stuff. I know it's ridiculous now. I mean, I've been out of law enforcement since 2021, which I'm sure we can talk about. But I feel like I've learned more about like real cop work being out of law enforcement, because I've I have uh, I've dove so much deeper into uh, information about it through guys like you and like Dennis and the guys over at Police Post and things like that. Just consuming more information about it than I ever did before. It's because it's just more readily available.
I agree.
It's literally right in your pocket.
Yeah, I
So
feel like there's so much that you can gain, and it's yeah, like social media makes it so readily available, and sometimes people get annoyed and they think like we're educating the bad guys or whatever. I'm like, but I would prefer everyone in this country to know what they can and can't do legally. Like, why not everyone just be on the same page and know what you can and can't do, and it makes life that much easier. I feel like you wouldn't have as many of these videos where cops are kind of like in no man's land, and these people are saying things that are outlandish that aren't legit, but then the cops like, oh shit, he's videotaping me, I don't know, like, is he right? I think if we just had an open forum where everyone knows what you can and can't do, it makes the job that much easier, and citizens know exactly what cops can do, and then we just have to abide by the rules as cops. And I don't know, I think that social media kind of gets ragged on a little too much when it comes to that shit, but I think that in the grand scheme of things, I'd prefer the entire country to know the laws and know what cops can do and what citizens can do, and it would just make everything more, I don't know, harmonious, I guess.
yeah, for true. I mean, I think that you have these people that are doing these, like the First Amendment auditors and all these clowns that are going around doing all this stuff. Um, you know, the first time that somebody started filming me, like I, I don't how do I deal with this? Like I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but here's this guy like saying all this rhetoric or whatever, and he's got a camera in my face. And this was, I think, the first time that ever happened to me was on a domestic that I got called to, and the victim, she says he's going to record you, and I was like, what? Because I'd heard about this happening at this time. This was all brand new stuff. Like, he's going to record. I'm like, what do you mean he's going to record me? Oh, he's going to record you. And sure enough, man, I said something. He was one to like he was wanting me to leave. And I was like, well, I can't leave right now. This is an active investigation. And he was just like, so he gave me I'm being detained. He gave me that classic line. And I was like, holy shit, this is happening. Like, he said the line. Then he whips his phone out. He's like, oh, I'm going to record this. And it's like, record it. And at that time we only had in-car cameras, so I had my microphone and stuff on, but it was just total ridiculousness. And nothing came of it at all. But I remember that feeling of like I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but damn, like I feel like I've got to change how I do things. And for a long time, you literally saw cops just not knowing what to do when they're being recorded. It's like they just changed how they operated. I don't know if it was they felt like they were going to get hemmed up on actually doing something wrong, or people perceiving it to be wrong, or what. But then you had, you know, the period of guys like grabbing people's phones, and you see the cops taking their phones away, and it's like, oh, this cop takes my phone away and all this stuff. And I feel like as cops, we don't learn very fast sometimes, man. And it's just like, ego has driven this profession for so long, and I feel like that due to this influx in readily available knowledge, I think guys are getting better. I mean, I think this is saved some of the stuff that you see where people get a bit ragged on for you know being cops that are, I don't know, weak, I guess, that aren't making good decisions. But I think by and large, that due to the actions of a few that have stepped out into this world of social media and who are being a voice in law enforcement, you're making better cops. Hands down, 100%. Period.
I think a lot of the negative videos that you see where cops are like kind of in no man's land, not knowing what to do. And I don't necessarily think that they don't know what to do on the legal aspect of it. I think it's more like it just, this is my personal opinion. I can't, like, not me personally, but just my personal opinion is, if you don't have a supportive administration, you're so afraid to break some rules or regs. And I feel like that's where cops get in that no man's land. Like, oh shit, like I know what I legally can do, but is my administration going to come down on me if I don't know, if I cuss at someone, or like something along those lines. And I think that that's where it kind of all falls apart, is if you have the comfortability and understand that your administration supports you in those situations and you're doing everything legally and just, you don't have all these apprehensions and second guessing things on a consistent basis. And I think that all starts with the supportive administration and down. If you don't have a supportive administration, then that's when you get cops that are in that like no man's land and not knowing what to do. That's just my personal opinion.
I would agree with you hands down on that. I mean, we've all seen the videos of the guy that's the cop that's holding the guy at gunpoint. And the guy's like got a knife. He's walking towards him. I mean, it's textbook use of force. I mean, just like clear cut, bought and paid for. You own him all day, and he's just backing away. Stop, 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 stop. Because the guy, whatever race the guy is, it all factors into this guy's process. Like, I don't want to be the next Derek Chauvin. I don't want to be the next this guy. I don't want to be the next this guy. But they're literally being put in this position to have to make this life-changing decision, not for their life, for the victim, for the not the victim, but the suspect's life, their family, everything. Everything at one moment can be changed. If I shoot this guy, how's it going to look? Who's going to be affected? And it definitely plays a role. And if you don't have a supportive administration that that, hey, I'm within the bounds of my policy, I'm within the bounds of the law, I can make this decision. I've been given the authority to make this decision because they hired me and gave me a badge and a gun. This is literally all of my training has led up to this moment, kind of a situation. And if you don't have that confidence in your leadership, then I mean, it will continue, and it has cost cops their lives. Period.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. It definitely is costing cops to get hurt, and it's costing them their lives because they're second guessing things. And I understand their mindset. Like, you see the stuff all over the news. Like, 1 out of a million cops. I don't know. That's an outrageous number, but there's 900,000 cops that are doing something right every single day, and then we see one, maybe one a month, one every other month that messes up, and then that's the one that everyone tries to relate all cops to, and group everyone together. And not even saying that he did anything wrong. It just looks wrong. And sometimes this profession, you have to use force. You have to use hands-on. You have to take people to jail. Like, that's what society has provided us with. And it's not always pretty. Like, we have to cuss. We have to use a parent's voice, I guess, or something along those lines. We have to use, hands-on. We have to touch people. Like, that's, and society has given us that. And then if you don't feel comfortable in those situations, or your admin doesn't feel comfortable in those situations, and you're second guessing yourself, you're 100% going to put yourself in a situation where your family's going to, I don't know, you're going to hurt you're going to get hurt or worse. And then your family's in a situation where,
They got to deal with the fallout.
yeah,
They gotta
something
deal with the fallout.
you have something you're going to regret for the rest of your life. And that goes both ways though. Like, if I do everything right, and I do, it is a life or death situation, and I do take this person's life, and my administration is not going to support me, then the media is going to run wild with it. And then you're thinking, well, if I don't, then I'm going to be the victim of this crime. And you're in the same situation.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
I
it's a
get it.
paradox, man. It's
Yep.
it's a no
Yeah.
it's a no win situation. And that's not, that isn't where a cop's head should be, period. In those moments when you have to make that decision, you have to be clear. You have to be a clear mind. And I just saw this in a movie the other day. It was I don't know, some Navy SEAL movie. I think it was Act of Valor. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
It's an older movie, but it's coming to my head right now because I just saw it. But before the team goes on their deployment or their mission, their lead guy or whatever he was, he tells them, like, hey, make sure your stuff's straight at home. Make sure your finances are good. Make sure your stuff's good with your wife. And in this scenario, it's like, hey, make sure that you've got like good admin, so you're not worried about that shit when you're out there having to do the work. So that's how it relates in my head.
One of my favorite sergeants, he would always say, like, your job is to handle everything in the streets. My job is to not let you worry about anything else that's taking place in this place. And I will support you in any decision you make, as long as you're making it legally and just within the rules and regs. You will never hear anything from the administration. It would always stop at me. Your job is to worry about what's going on in the streets. So, like, kind of go out there as a clear mind. And I remember in the academy, they played a video where an officer got shot, and I don't know if he was killed or not, but he pulled up on he was an active guy. I guess his sergeant said, I don't want you to be active. Like, stop making traffic stops, basically. So the guy goes to work the next shift, and he gets dispatched to like a guy with a gun or a suspicious vehicle or something like that. And the cop ends up getting shot because he does not want his sergeant to get mad at him. So he's like so apprehensive on putting the guy in handcuffs, restraining him. Like, so the guy's walking around his car and eventually pulls out a gun and starts shooting at him. And I think he lived, but I think he did get shot. And basically, he was so worried that his sergeant was going to lecture him, so that's why he didn't go hands on. And when my sergeant was at one of my favorite sergeants was telling me that as I was a young cop, like, that always came to mind, like, where it's like he never wants to be in that position now. I could only imagine that officer sergeant then thinking, like, shit, I just got my guy shot because I was so anti him doing something to prevent something from happening, and he was so worried about what I just told him instead of going out there with a clear mind and being a cop and doing what is right.
Yeah. I'm sure you've probably seen the same video, but the deputy that was killed, Kyle Dinkeller, does that name ring a bell? The video is officer makes a traffic stop, and the guy he stops, he's like an old Vietnam vet. And so Dinkeller gets out of the car and he's giving the guy commands, and the guy is he opens his truck and he's standing facing the officer, and he's basically just like, fuck you, whatever. And you can hear Dinkeller giving him commands, sir, step out of the car, sir, step out of the car. And he's just screaming these commands. The guy, he reaches back in the truck, comes back out, screams at him some more. And he's literally saying, like, I've got a rifle here and I'm going to shoot you with it. And I think at this point, Dinkeller had pulled his gun and he's trained on him with his pistol. still giving him commands, still calling him sir, sir, don't do this, sir, don't do that. And the guy literally pulls out a hunting rifle and shoots him to death.
Wow.
Like I don't know if I think Dean Taylor did get shots off, and I don't remember if he hit him. There's a guy that I know made a whole documentary about this. It's a really great story, but it's the video that's shown in. I think it's still shown in all academies. I mean, it's just the craziest thing. But it's it's one of those where you hear you hear the officer literally struggling for life because he's wearing his microphone still, and the guy comes up at the very last end and shoots him one last time and finishes him off, and it's all caught on the interaction is caught on dash cam, but the audio is 100% caught, and he killed him. And I know at one point, I think this has been debunked, but I'm not 100% sure. I think there was some speculation that a very similar situation like that had happened. Like they had kind of cracked down on him for being too tough or whatever, and maybe he had gotten in some trouble. But I think that theory has been kind of debunked. But still, yet, I mean, it was a lasting theory, and you could see how it applies because of the behavior that he took. I mean, I don't know, man. A guy tells me, I've got a rifle here and I'm going to kill you with it. He's probably bought and paid for,
Yep.
And as soon as the butt of that rifle comes out, we're going to have an empty mag and a reload. I'm just saying, just saying, but, yeah, it's a sad deal though, man. I mean, you got guys that are out there. People forget that this is a job, this is a job that pays somebody's bills, and I think even we forget that, it's a super noble profession. It's heroic. It's exciting. It's full of action. But ultimately, you have this job to take care of your livelihood. It's for a paycheck. And, here this guy is, afraid to do his job, do the job that he has to do. And it's essentially just over a paycheck. I don't know if whenever you start to think about it in those terms, at least for me, man, I just start shaking my head. It's like, God, why did I ever do this?
Yeah. I mean, because someone has to. And if
absolutely.
or good cops aren't out there trying to do it, like society's going to fall. Like, you could take any other profession away and society might last for, a certain amount of time. But I think if you got rid of cops tomorrow, by noon tomorrow, this place would be complete fucking chaos. There's no
doubt. Look, how did it work out for Chaz? It didn't, and having stepped away from law enforcement, and I'm super grateful that through our business I'm able to keep my finger on the pulse and stay connected to the profession because I love it. I love all the guys that I work with, man. The guys that are out there still working the streets, man. Just like I have immense love and respect for them, and I'm incredibly grateful for them because I mean I know how hard the job is. I know how it is, and I know the stuff they have to put up with. And I mean, to be honest, it's no longer something that I would want to put up with. Like I've said before, I've been out of law enforcement for a few years now, and I don't think there's really any amount of money that could make me want to go back to it. Because I did it for 14 years. I left as a patrol sergeant and stepped away from it. To see the amount of stress that it was off of me and off of my family, yeah, I mean, there's not any amount of money in the world that would make me want to put that stress on my family again, and let alone the stress less life that I have now without that aspect of things it's really immeasurable. I mean, some of the greatest times of my life were done doing the job. I mean, I loved every second of it. Loved the guys that I worked with, and I feel like that chapter of my life is closed. And I don't regret like all the stuff we accomplished at all. And that isn't that aspect of it isn't what I would not go back to. It's all the bullshit that comes with it. You know, when I left my agency, man, it was just super weak administration, super poor situation, and I just was fed up with it. And you know, that ultimately led to my decision to leave. But yeah, all the stuff that surrounds all of that, it would be a hard one to go back to for me.
So you did 14 years,
Yeah.
and then at what point you brought up your business? At what point during that did you start your own company?
What year was that? 2015, I think. I think it's 2015. Yeah, we've been in business. This is going to be our. Oh, we're in our 10th year now. So yeah, 2015. Um, man, our business, it was never an idea for a business. It was never meant to be, you know, hey, I'm gonna start this business, right? I've got this idea for this product. It's gonna be a business. So the way that this happened was when I was working in detention, man. I mean, if you don't know what our product is, it's a microphone retention device. That's all it is. It's a bare bones, simple microphone retention device called the mic loop. There's been a lot of effort put into naming it. But that's essentially what it is. You know, we wanted to keep the whole idea simple. But whenever I was in detention, man, I just like every cop out there that has this same problem and nobody really ever talks about it. It's your radio mic coming unclipped. That was like, it was just super annoying. It was the super annoying thing for me. And in detention, we didn't wear body armor, so you know I was always looking for ways to fix it. You know, I bought like little clips and little straps, stuff like for your shoulder epaulets and stuff like that. They had leather straps and nylon straps that you could do that. And, you know, I did that, but I wasn't really a fan of like having the mic on your shoulder for a variety of reasons, which we could get into a debate on proper mic placement and stuff like that. I'm sure in an episode of something. But you know, I tried a bunch of different options and they never worked. So got on patrol, you know, got out of the academy, got on patrol, still trying to find some other options. I did find a product that I thought was okay, but it clamped onto like my shirt button, you know, and I used that for a little while, and I just didn't like the way that it sat. You know, it put too much stress on the button. I didn't really trust it. I thought it was going to break, you know, the button popping off or something ridiculous, and I just didn't like the way it sat. So I had this had a little bit of paracord and some Velcro, and I just sandwiched some cord in this Velcro, right, and just stuck it, hooked it to my body armor, and clipped my mic into it, and boom, I had this thing, and it fixed the problem for me. Like that's just the ridiculousness of it. It just fixed the problem for me. That's all I wanted it to do, and wore it out on patrol one night, and we're all me and the troop that I worked with and some of the other smaller agencies, we would all pal around at a gas station at 2 o'clock in the morning getting coffee, whatever it was. And I was telling them like, hey man, check out this thing I made, you know, and they're looking at it and they're like, holy shit, that's really cool. Can you make me one of those? You know, and I was like, yeah, no problem, you know, and whipped it together, made a few of them. And, you know, people started asking me like, man, let me pay you some money for that. I'm like, nah, man, just buy me a Red Bull or something, you know, whatever. And one day, I was sitting there and I told my wife I'd been remarried by this time, and I was telling my wife, it's like, hey, I think I'm gonna take this thing, I'm gonna like sew it together. I'm just gonna see what it looks like. So like I had a sewing machine, you know, I'd had home economics class in high school, so I knew how to run a sewing machine, and I ran a stitch through it. I was like, this is pretty solid, you know, and I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to make a few of these and I'm just going to post them on Facebook. I'm just going to see what happens. So like I made like 4 of these things just out of like some janky ass Velcro that I had left lying around the house. I think it was like white Velcro. Just they look terrible. And I remember my wife like making fun of me, like, this is a terrible idea. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, those are so ugly. She was just like, just dogging. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, they're not pretty. I'm just going to put it on here. See what happens. So, like, make 4 of these things with little like pictures of demonstrations, how they work and whatever. And yeah, man, the next morning, like, I had like, I don't know, 10 messages in my inbox and like comments and stuff on it. It's my personal Facebook page too. It's not like I had a bunch of friends, and they're like, that's so cool. Like, I want one. How do I get one? How much are they? I think I was like $5. Yeah. PayPal me $5, whatever. And as the day went on, more and more people they share it or whatever. And I think at the end of the day, my wife came home from work that day. Is my day off, and I had written down like 25 names and addresses, and I had no idea how to like manage shipping or anything. I was totally unprepared for this. And my wife comes home and she sees me. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm totally flustered. I think my ears were red, and I'm just like totally flustered. So she is very much more compartmentalized than my brain is. And she was able to kind of like structure everything, and she worked out a I guess like a payment system, a point of sale type system, and she dove deep into understanding e-commerce, and got a website hosted, got a website built, and started selling them. And again, yeah, they were like $5, and I think after we got started, we bumped the price up to like $8. Just starting out, and at that point, we were live. We started this Facebook page, the Mike Loop, and um, just started posting pictures about it, describing what it is. And I had this idea of like, okay, cool. I want to start reaching out to other cop pages and ask them, just throwing it out there, man. Like, hey, will you guys take a look at this? Will you share this? Will you repost this? And I had no idea how to network on social media at this point, man. I mean, I had barely had a Facebook for very long before this, and ended up reaching out to Survive the Streets. Remember that one?
Mhm.
Survive the Streets, a page for cops. Reached out to those guys. This is back when I think they only had about 60,000 followers, and yeah, they bit. Talked to a guy there, Chris, and he was like, yeah. He said, if you send it to me, I'll test it out. He said, but I'm going to tell you right now, if it sucks, I'm going to let everybody know it sucks. And I'm just like, cool, man, do it. So send him one of our products. Our packaging was terrible at the time. I think that we just put them in like, I don't know, the little Ziploc baggie, and then we had like a sticker on them, just like like a mailing label, and sent him one. A few weeks later, man, he posted a review. The only critique that he gave us was our packaging needed to be upgraded. But outside of that, he's like, I tried to break this thing as much as I could, and broke my radio and all those other things, and just gave this glowing review. And it just skyrocketed from there, just took off. So yeah, we became a full-fledged business at that point. Um, prior to that, we were making a few sales here and there, and it turned into a thing where it didn't formulate into like this is going to be our business. It just kind of became a thing of like, if we sell this many this month, we can pay our whatever bill, this will pay our rent, those kind of things. That was the biggest picture that we had. And it's like, cool, we can just keep this up. We'll just pay a couple of bills. That'll be great. Just a little side hustle, right? And I mean, it very much turned into a full-fledged business very quickly. I think we thought we were hot stuff whenever like our first sale came from like Hawaii or something like that. It's just holy shit. We sold it's the US, but it's outside of the US, so like it's reached out that far. So it's pretty cool. It was really, really cool to watch the areas that it was coming in from, the orders would come in from, and to see the different reach that it started to have. So
Were you making them all by hand?
we still make them all by hand.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, every single one that goes out of our doors is touched by us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's
Well, outsource anything, so it's all you guys.
yeah. I mean, we have to source our Velcro, from Velcro brand from the company, and we just buy spools of paracord by the thousands of foot rolls all the time, but yeah, everything is the only thing that's outsourced is like our packaging, printing our packaging. Of course, we have to order all that. But as far as manufacture our products are very simple. There's you can look at it, you can tell there's just not a whole lot to it. It's just very simple. It just has a purpose. Um, and yeah, at this point in time. I mean, 10 years later, we're still um, able to manage the volume by ourselves. I'm sure at some point, hopefully, if our business continues to grow as it has, that we'll get to a point where we will have no choice but to outsource some form of manufacturing. The downside of that is, I mean, you have to be able to make the numbers work, you know. So you have to be able to offset costs by some ways. I mean, we don't want to have to get to a point where we have to like jack up our price, because that was our whole point, to keep this product as simple as we can, is because we want to make it totally affordable. I mean, I'm sure you have overpaid for gear. I'm sure you have bought something you're like, this is expensive, but I think I need it. And there's no reason why we should have to charge a ton of money for our product. That was kind of the thing too. Whenever we were like, how much are we going to charge for this? Because I'm very practical, and I can look at something and go like, man, cops aren't gonna, people aren't gonna pay this much for this thing, like whatever. And I started to think like, well, I used to just tell guys like, buy me lunch, right? And lunch is like $5-7. So we wanted to keep it in that range of like, it's nothing for cops to go to Chipotle. You won't get out of Chipotle without spending $15, period. Like you won't. And that was kind of our deal. Is like, we want to keep it where it's as affordable as lunch, and if it cost us more to make, then we'd probably charge more for it. But at this time, we can handle the volume with it, and we're able to keep it, bringing it to a customer at a good price, and we're good with it, man. I mean, it meets our needs, and we get to continue to make this for cops out there.
That's awesome. Does your wife have any type of like entrepreneur business mindset at all, or is that outside of her even realm of work?
Yeah, she's just a savage.
Right.
She just she's a very good self learner. If she doesn't understand something, she will study it relentlessly until she fully understands it. And she doesn't have like a degree in business or anything like that. Her brain just works that way, and she's just very good at solving these type of problems. She understands like trends and stuff like that way better than I do too. So she can kind of see how things work, and again, like if she doesn't understand like a business aspect of something, or um, search engine optimization, or something something along those lines, she'll dive until she understands it. That's a big strength that she has.
That's awesome.
She is the brains behind like the operation. I'm just like the face, and just like the guy that wore the uniform and whatever. But no, she is the brains behind it all.
That's awesome. So you said that you left law enforcement because of weak administration. Before we touch on that, with the demand across this country for law enforcement, I get messages from guys that are super unhappy with their administration, and I think that there's a way that you can find cops that match up well with departments' motives and their like I guess mission statement. And if cops are unhappy, I just feel like I know it sucks, but I think that there's always a department that's going to match what you think policing looks like. And especially right now, you can lateral many places, and if you're unhappy in the current situation, I'm not saying you specifically, but the current climate in law enforcement, if you're unhappy at a particular agency, I'm sure there's another agency that nearby that will match what you think policing looks like, and vice versa. If you're an administrator and you don't want guys to be active, I think you need to lay that out there to let them know, like, hey, no, our department is, we're responding to calls. We don't want you out there initiating calls and so on. And I just think that, I don't know, administrations and cops can find the place that works with them together the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if if you give your subordinates the uh, the boundaries in which they can operate, hey, here's your boundaries. This is what all you can do. Just accomplish the mission. However you need to do it, just do it within these boundaries. I think that, you'll attract the, with whatever your mission is, you'll attract the guys that want to do that mission. But if you give them full freedom to accomplish that mission, how they need to do it within the boundaries that you lay out, you'll have a happy workforce because they'll know, it'll be a clear line of what they can and can't do. And you will have drawn in the people that want to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. Did your administration have like a massive change? Is that what happened? Or was it like a gradual?
Well, so the sheriff that I was hired under, and it's sheriff's department, dude. I mean, it's an elected official, So I mean, every 4 years you run the risk of a brand new boss. I mean, I guess police municipalities, can be very similar. If the city administrator starts to hate your chief, they just fire him and you get a new one. Whatever, things can change. But in our case, I had a great sheriff that hired me. He was there for 2 terms. So the first 8 years, a lot of people didn't like him just because of he rubbed some people the wrong way. But he was a solid leader, and I never had any issues with him. He was great to work for. We got a lot accomplished. He brought our agency up to the present because the prior agency had just pretty much milked it dry and ran it into the dirt. But he brought it current. And we were out there doing work, man. We were doing a lot of work. During that time I had gotten on the SWAT team and we were serving a bunch of search warrants. We were responding to a lot of stuff. Fast forward, that sheriff stepped down, new guy steps in. He had been a chief deputy for the sheriff that I was hired under. And up until that point, everybody liked him. Everybody thought he was going to make a good fit. He was going to do good. He was up under the other administration. He came up under the other administration. So we kind of thought he was just going to take the torch and run with it. But he gets a few years in a political position. He kind of got into situations where he didn't really want to make decisions, and ultimately, he kind of started showing his true colors whenever there were some use of force that were totally justifiable and reasonable. They just had a bad optic, and he wasn't about it, and he didn't support the deputies involved, me being one of them on a couple of occasions, and which I called him out directly for, about not making the right decision or saying, hey, we should do this instead. He opted to go a different way, which ultimately was his solution was we're gonna lay out discipline for this so that it gets out in front of this was the idea. We're gonna discipline you guys for this so we can get out in front of this. It's like damage control. We're gonna show the public, hey, we're handling this in-house situation, but it was, why are we getting written up for this? Like, we literally didn't do anything wrong. It's like, oh, it'll be out of your file in 6 months, that kind of bullshit. And those couple of instances showed the entire agency, like, no, he's going to throw us under the bus anytime. I had countless deputies come up to me like, man, I heard about what happened to you, man, it's bullshit. Guys that were veteran deputies that have been there for a long time coming up to me expressing their concerns. And the agency as a whole, we went from very proactive policing to where guys pretty much just sat around and waited for shit to happen. We were out there stopping a lot of cars all the time. I mean, the radio traffic would just be all night long. To we're going to go sit in the parking lot and wait for calls to come out. And if we're bored, I'll go stop a couple of cars. But the whole idea was I can't get in trouble if I'm not out there stirring shit up. And that became commonplace, you know, which it just wasn't worth it to try to get in trouble. It wasn't worth it to do it, you know. And again, like we were saying earlier, I mean that came from lack of faith in the people that are supposed to have your back.
I think you could judge the morale of a police department based on how proactive the cops are.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you're an aspiring cop and you go and look and see how proactive they are, and if they're out there actively trying to find bad guys and not just responding to calls, that's going to give you a good gauge of the morale of that agency.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a good way to check the temperature of the agency for sure. I guess I've never really thought about that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just looking objectively, like my first 6 years, I had 6 different chiefs, but I was so new, I didn't like realize like what was going on. I was just happy to be here. And in all 6 of those defenses, like the chiefs, they all encouraged us to be proactive. So like young guys were still out there getting it. If there was beef or animosity between the ranks, like sergeants and so on, like we didn't really hear about it as, you know, young officers. But I'd look at other agencies around me where you can see the change, where there was someone that was there that supported it, or there was someone there that didn't and left, and now you see the productivity go up, and or vice versa. So and I'm assuming that goes kind of across the board, but definitely in my area, you could kind of tell like if the administration supports them, those agencies are out there getting it on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, you look at I mean, probably one of the most well-known sheriffs in the country is, you know, Grady Judd down in Florida, Polk County, Florida. I mean, who doesn't want to work for a cop that says, if you pull a gun on my deputies, they're going to shoot you and shoot you a lot? I mean, like, it's just like, cool. Like, I can work with that guy because I know that he's got my back. I mean, I don't know if it's every single day, but I know in my Instagram feed, he does the morning debrief where he like has the picture of the guy like, this idiot right here tried to steal a purse from 7-Eleven or whatever, whoever sells purses at Walmart, and he found out the wrong way, you know, whatever. I don't know, man. That's to me that he's going to get a lot of hate talk and a lot of people saying he's too abrasive. But I mean, you have to relentlessly stand up for your guys because they will work as hard as they can for you if they know that you're going to support them hands down, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like someone that takes that stance, you don't, for me anyways, I don't see a lot of the media personalities attacking him. I feel like if it's someone that they don't know, the media attacks said like sheriff or chief. But if it's someone that takes that stance, I don't see the media going after him on a regular basis. Like, and you would think if they wanted to attack someone that's supporting the proactive aspect of law enforcement, he would be the face of it, and you'd see him everywhere every single day. But I think that he takes such a hard line on it, and he's so well spoken, and he states the facts that like the media is just like, nah, we're gonna leave you alone, and we'll go mess with someone else that kind of wishy-washy in these situations.
Well, I think you nailed it right there by saying like he has a hard line. You know what I mean? That's the perfect phrase. Is that they know that he's just immovable. He's just like, this is where I stand. You're not going to change my mind, but you can get somebody else who they may want to like play tough, like I'm the new sheriff in town kind of mentality, but they may balk on a couple of things, and then it's like that's when they got him. You know, like we can criticize here and criticize there, and that's where you start finding those chinks in your armor. But I think that if you're going to be an administrator, you have to you have to um, manage your agency with almost reckless abandon, man. I mean, you have to just say like, I don't care what you guys think. You can fire me if you want, but this is how we're going to run this place. And I mean, I think that it would be ridiculous of me to say that, I wouldn't want to preserve my job, my career. You have some chief who's in a position who's been in law enforcement for, I don't know, 25 years, working towards that retirement year. They don't want to lose all of that. And it's for a lot of guys, it's self-preservation mode, and you've worked towards this goal. But I mean, that's really the kind of the Achilles heel of law enforcement, man, is like when you get into those upper administrative jobs that are kind of hinge jobs. They hinge on an optic because somebody else makes that decision. Well, we don't like you anymore. The board doesn't like what you're doing, and we want you to have this more of a picture, or you're gone. I mean, the city that I live in, they went through several chiefs before they landed on the one they have now, who just plays ball. Like, he does all the woke shit, and it's just he makes them happy because he fits the optic, and he's going to stay there until I guess he retires. But yeah, I think that if you are going to take that standpoint, that's kind of why I like the whole idea of like, so when I left, I became a patrol sergeant in 2017, and um, by the time whenever I became a patrol sergeant, before I did that, I knew that promotion was kind of coming up. I dove into leadership, so I wanted to learn as much about what leadership meant as possible. So about that time, Jocko was becoming popular. So I mean, extreme ownership, read all that, and just kind of dove into that mentality of leadership and what that meant. And so I had the opportunity to learn how to be a leadership with a good group of people, and just learning what that meant. And I think that that's kind of where, like you were describing your other sergeant, or the sergeant that you mentioned earlier. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to say like, yeah, that's the kind of sergeant I was, but I mean, I look back and I'm going, well, that was my mentality of what I wanted to do for my guys. Is I wanted to support them as much as I possibly could so that they could do the job. And you let me deal with this. That was my idea. You let me deal with this, and I'm going to make sure you get everything that you need, whatever it is. I would look at my guys and be like, we had 4 deputies that patrolled the county. Right? We had 600 square miles covered by 4 deputies, and if we were shorthanded, it made the job a little tough. We had to cover other people's areas or whatever the case was, but it was doable. We didn't have some massive call volume. I mean, we're just some rural county in Arkansas, but I mean, we would stay busy sometimes. But I would look at my guys and, hey man, how much sick time do you have? Oh, I've got however much time. You look like you're going to be sick tomorrow, kind of thing. Like, take some time off. Because I had young guys. I'd been there for 12 years at that point, and I had a bunch of young guys that were gung ho and they wanted to do it, but I'm like, no, man, like, take some time off. Go take. So I instilled those type of things of, your time is important, your family time is important. Use that time. You're taking a sick day for mental health. That's a sick day as far as I'm concerned, man. Like, go take some time off, use it. And I wanted to be that type of leader that fought for them in that respect. And I would take the heat for it, but that's kind of where I landed on this idea that like a patrol sergeant is the place to be, like it, because it's just like, I don't think that if I would have stayed there, I don't think I would have promoted because like, I didn't have a desire to promote. I said too much stuff. I mean, they got to where they quit asking my opinion because it was like, you're asking me a question. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, I had no issues telling them like their ideas were stupid. They weren't going to hurt my feelings, but Uh, I think that, and I think I know I've heard you talk about it too on other episodes about how, you have those solid leaders. They never promote because they don't kiss the ass, but that's who you need. That's who you need leading the way. But then it's like there's this dichotomy of, well, now they're up in this upper position, and now that they answer to somebody else. So it's just, man, it's just such a vicious cycle. I mean, you see you see a lot of really good leaders that are over, like these patrol sergeants, like these middle ground leaders. When they get up into those upper positions, they change just because of the dynamics, or they get away from. They forget how to be cops. They get so far away from it, they forget how to be cops. And I think it just takes, man, it just takes some hard dudes to keep that mentality, and that's really what the profession needs. It's what it's always. But I think it's uh I think it's less and less these days. Hopefully things are changing. Hopefully things are changing with the dynamics of things, man. I hope so.
Yeah, I always feel like law enforcement is kind of a pendulum. So it seems that it's going back to um, where society wants us to take bad guys to jail. They want us to go out there and find bad guys. They just don't want us, they want us to put in a good day's work. They don't want us just to sit here and answer calls for service and those types of things. And it seems it's going that way. But I mean, at least in my area, and I think with sergeants, like you promote to sergeant because you can still be a cop, and then if you promote any further than that, you're really distancing yourself, and you're doing more, I guess, administrative type paperwork type things and those types, and a lot of people that enjoy doing police work don't want to be paper pushers, and I'm not trying
Right.
to downgrade that position. It's needed, but a lot of the sergeants aren't going to want to test because they don't want to do that. They want to be able to go and take bad guys to jail with their guys and those and girls and those types of things. So I think that's where it starts to get like you start to get bad people in those like lieutenant positions because the good sergeants don't want to promote, and then all of a sudden now you have a guy that is like, well, he's not our favorite sergeant, but he's the best on the list because the favorite one isn't putting in for it. So
Yeah. Well, and again, talking about putting good people in those leadership roles. I think that if you are that solid sergeant, and you know you have to understand that you can actually do more if you keep that mentality. You can do more at that higher rank. You just have to still carry that mentality, because I mean, at the higher your rank, you're going to carry more weight. You have more decisions that you can make, and more influence. You'll have. So, it's kind of one thing that Jocko talked about in extreme ownership is having that influence. Being one of those upper leaders, and having the trust of your other administrators, or your chain of command, and being able to have that stronger influence to get the things that your guys need. Uh, it's I don't want to say it's like a slippery slope, but man, it can be. When you get up into those other positions and you get away from the street, I think that it just becomes your responsibility, and something that on an individual basis that you have to keep in your frame of reference, is that, yes, I'm a lieutenant, yes, I'm a captain, but you know, my heart is in patrol, kind of thing. Like this is where if you can keep that mentality of your only job is to support your guys, from a sergeant to a lieutenant to a captain, and you don't get caught up in all the brass bullshit, I think that you do fine if you keep that in perspective, that your only job is to support your subordinates. That's it.
yeah, no, I completely agree there. So we try to keep these to an hour, and we're like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. So do you have anything that you want to add? Maybe some advice for aspiring or young cops?
Oh man. So I had this question the other day, and I'm trying to remember how I worded it. I think that if I could go back and tell myself what to do differently, I think that's always kind of a good way to, I guess, put it. What would you go back and tell yourself? And so what would I tell new cops? I think I would tell myself not to get caught up in the drama. Don't, as a new cop, you want to fit in, and it's really easy to get caught up in the shit talk. Um, think for yourself. That's one of the most critical things that I think a new cop can do is to think for yourself. If you get some information from somebody about case laws or situations or tactics, you know, take it for what it is, listen to what they are, and then learn for yourself. Find out the details for yourself. Um, and yeah, don't get caught up in the rumor mill. Something I learned way too late in my law enforcement career is that we kind of eat our own when it comes to agencies and all the stuff, and you're just going to have people that want to make you look bad so they can look better. So just do your job, stay true to yourself, and think for yourself. That's about the best advice I could give. Um, some new cop going in, and learn, man. Always be a source, always be a student. Don't ever think that you know it all, because there's always more to learn, whether that's training, physical training, training with your tools, training your skills, training your knowledge on the laws. I'm embarrassed to say that I have learned more about case law being out of law enforcement than I ever did, because my agency never pushed case law with us. The most case law we learned in the academy was just like a few of the big names. I think I don't even think Pennsylvania versus Mims is like my favorite case law forever, just because it's rad. But I think that they really stress like um, they stressed the Miranda and Tennessee v. Gardner hard, and none of the others were really. I think we probably touched wave tops on them, but I've learned more about case law and its importance being out of law enforcement than I ever did in law enforcement. So
Yeah.
learn your stuff, man. I mean, that's all it is. Just be a student, be open minded, and the more you learn, the more confident you will be in your abilities. Hands down.
Yep. I always say that as like when you know what you can and can't do, everything else comes easy, because now I'm not thinking about can I do this or can't I do this, and now I can just act because I already know. And trust me, like talking about case law, I didn't start embracing case law until maybe 10 years on the job. Like I knew what I could and couldn't do on the ground level, but like to start to like actually understand and see where the court's mind is at, like when they're making these rulings. Like I know what I could and could do because I'm reading the Cliff Notes version of it, but I'm not like
Yeah.
looking and embracing and saying like, well, why are they wording it this way? Why are they going this route? And it took about 10 years on the job before I started to, even understand how to read case law. So I think that's I mean, it's a sad part, but it's probably pretty true across the board. Most cops, it's case law is not the easiest to read, and we're cops for a reason.
No, you don't, and you don't have an application for it when you first become a cop. You
Yep.
you don't have a context to put it in.
Yep.
Just like saw bad guy do something, arrested, same.
Yeah, pretty much.
Saw drunk, arrested, same. I literally had my sergeant like write that on a probable cause one time, and my sergeant at the time was, God, he was like as country could come, and his PC was saw drunk, arrested, same. I was like, holy shit.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So
We always end our podcast with one question, man. So we teach for Justice Academy. What is your definition of justice?
oh, let's see. Let me get Webster's out here for a second. Yeah, man. I mean, I think justice is a reasonable consequence for your actions. I think that it boils down to that simple thing. I think that there should be a consequence for offense or actions of any kind, and as long as that consequence is reasonable, then I think justice can be served up until the point of um, I think that if your actions affect somebody else's life, and those consequences have to be more strict or harsh. Um, and unfortunately, justice doesn't always work that way. But yeah, reasonable consequences for actions. I think it can be boiled down pretty simply like that.
I like it, man. Well, I appreciate you joining me on Beyond the Barrel. And if you want to do it again, I mean, I could sit here and listen to you talk all day. I mean, but I got to kind of keep it. I got to edit the stuff later on. So, but yeah, man, I would definitely have you on again. We could talk about some other shit.
Yeah, dude, I'd love it. That's awesome.
All right, man. Well, you be safe. And if you need anything, let me know.
Cool. Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you, man.
See you, dude.